Welcome back to This is the Bet. Excited to break down this Big 12 matchup, the first for BYU as they travel to Kansas in a game where they are considered the underdog, but maybe not as big of an underdog as we could have seen in this game coming off that SEC win against Arkansas. Brandon, how are you feeling about this game coming up?
No, I'm feeling more optimistic than I was a couple weeks ago going into this game. BYU coming off a big road win at Arkansas, 38-31 win. Just a pretty crazy game, back and forth, but BYU's defense kind of having some key turnovers that allowed them to kind of ice the game and win that one. I think BYU's defense has an identity. Jay Hill was a great hire, it looks like, for BYU. He's allowed the defense to create pressure on the quarterback. They got pressure on KJ Jefferson last week. The linebackers Bywater and Tooley really showing out and proving they can hold down the middle of the field. And then the cornerbacks are great. Jacob Robinson, Eddie Heckard, and the only question mark is really the safety group because they've just had some injuries there. But no, the defense looks great. Offense has put up. There's been some big numbers against SU and Arkansas, but I don't know if they're quite as good as the box score might look. They've had some short fields and kind of been able to score thanks to those turnovers. But what are your thoughts on this one going into it? I'm optimistic. I think this is kind of a 50-50 game. The spread doesn't make sense to me, but what do you think?
Yeah, so like you're saying, as a first thought going into this game, the defense miles ahead of what we could have predicted for this team. Jay Hill coming out. And I said it before in the Arkansas game. What happened was, the defense allowed points and big plays. It wasn't like they played a perfect game, but they stepped up in moments where the team needed them to
Yeah,
step up, even though they let Arkansas score. Final possession of the game, getting pressure to the quarterback. Or how about forcing fumbles? How about just I can't say it enough, getting pressure on the quarterback because that's something we did not see last year. It felt like quarterbacks had all the time in the world to throw. So I just have to be excited for this Kansas game that this is a defense we can trust, I feel like, to step up, to just to play some great football that you can trust that if your defense gets off the field, we can put it in the hands of the offense. And right now the BYU offense is kind of like they could continue to get better. They could stay where they are stagnant, but at least the defense is going to get their job done and say it's in your hands offense. Here's what you got to do for us. So I think this Kansas game is just another opportunity for the defense to step up because I kind of looking into the current outlook and who's going to dominate this game, right? Kansas is coming in kind of the offensive powerhouse, I feel, compared to BYU. Like I said,
hmm
BYU's the offense showed some signs of being great. You had LJ Martin's big rush. You had the trick play. Um, you had them coming down. I put a big thing on Slovis rushing for that one first down he got, where it was he had to get like 7 yards and he just
yeah,
went for it, even though that's not his style. We could see something great from, but I feel Kansas comes in the offensive powerhouse in this. Just looking at some of their offensive stats, right? Their yards in the air, right? 317. Um, they're going to want to just absolutely. Sorry, that is. I've got Baylor pulled up. Kansas.
283. It was three. Yeah,
Yes, I was like, I don't really.
yeah. It's
287
like
is what
what?
I had.
Yeah.
My bad.
Okay.
I had my model pulled up of of Baylor, but
The Baylor. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, that's a little higher than but almost up there with Baylor, right?
Yeah.
287. You got Jalen Daniels just slinging the ball, and when he's not slinging the ball, he's running the ball, which I feel could give BYU some real trouble if we're not careful.
Yeah. Jalen Daniels. He's a great player. He can throw really well. He's mobile. He can get out of the pocket and make plays when he needs to. He showed that a lot last year. He didn't play the first game this season, but in just the two games, 575 yards, two touchdowns, one interception. So looks to be the same player. He hasn't really had a super explosive game, but I think that could come against BYU. It's hard to know. He can run, but I think current outlook, the defense. KJ Jefferson last year against BYU ran the ball pretty well against our defense, and then this year he had a couple runs, but nothing out of hand. And I think that has a lot to do with Max Tooley and Ben Bywater. Max Tooley's a great QB spy, and I could see them using him that way in this game too, and just kind of spying on Daniels. What do you think? How are they going to stop Daniels from just having an explosive performance?
Yeah,
Because BYU's defense, those safeties, not very experienced. He could throw over the top on us, or he could run against us. What do you think they need to
yeah.
do?
There's nothing more frustrating, I feel, in a game than watching the quarterback drop back and then shoot up the middle and get like like
Easy first
you
down.
get them to a
Yeah,
third down, right? Which is something Kansas might try to expose BYU on his third down conversions, right?
right.
Quarterback drops back. You're like, oh, they're gonna get him, and then he just shoots up the middle, first down for a ridiculous amount of yards. That is nothing more frustrating, and that's something that Kansas is on their third downs is they're converting at a 66.67%.
Yeah,
They're
especially the
going to
past
be
2 weeks, they've been
yeah,
insane. Yeah,
they're going to find that. And then what's even more frustrating is he drops back and you think, oh, he's going to run. And then he throws a dart across the middle for positive yards. So I'm hoping BYU's defense can step up. Yes, get pressure to the quarterback, but find a way to keep him in that pocket and surround him. Make it so he can't run and he has to go to the air, and then rely on your secondary to come up and get an interception, or just keep pressure on them so that they're not picking up as much yards. That's the only way I see you on this.
yeah. I mean, having to contain Jalen Daniels is going to be tough because I always wonder how much pressure is going to matter on a quarterback like him that can move around so well. Obviously, quarterbacks that are less mobile, when you get pressure on them, they kind of don't know how to escape. But Daniels has that ability to get out and escape, and so I think they're gonna have to stay disciplined, surround him, like you said. The edges have to stay containing, and I think having a spy on him, at least while the game is kind of close and on third downs, especially having a linebacker to watch him and kind of keep him and close in on him if needed. I think that's kind of going to be the key, and then cornerbacks staying disciplined to kind of help out the safeties as well, so they don't get over the top and on those long routes. So
Yeah, so
so I put this here. Which side is better? So we have the BYU offense versus the Kansas defense. So we'll start with that. Which side do you think is better? BYU's offense or Kansas's defense? Who has the edge in this game?
yeah, so just diving into some of Kansas's defensive numbers, right? 157 passing yards kind of allowed per game on average. If you look at college football's average, it's about 232. So, above average on that pass defense. Well, well above average on that pass defense, and then rush defense 144. Now, if they're only allowing that 144 and BYU on average is only rushing for 95, is BYU's run game going to get it going? They're relying solely, I feel, on LJ Martin right now, right? He's the
Yeah,
lone wolf starter. Robinson isn't what we thought he was.
we didn't see him at all last week, Robbins, right?
No,
He didn't have
no,
any
I don't
carries.
know. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on LJ, but I think he steps up. But if we're just looking at numbers wise, their defense, at least for our run game, is going to struggle. And then with the pass game, right, we're only averaging 174. We haven't seen as explosive as I said we thought maybe from Slovis. So then you're looking at they're only allowing 157. BYU's only getting 174. So is it really that much better? Are we going to be able to expose them there? I feel yes. This will be a game that BYU steps up. I'm really hoping for that, and I really think they can. But if we were just going on paper, I'm seeing it as Kansas defense being just a little bit better than BYU's offense. It'll take BYU stepping up their offense. They can't remain stagnant. We can't see any glimpse of what we saw against Sam Houston. It's got to be miles ahead.
Yeah. Looking at Kansas defense, looking at the numbers strictly, you say, okay, Kansas defense has the edge. Probably some of the reason why we see this 9.5 point spread. And then BYU's offense, on the other hand, struggled to perform. Week one, kind of a crappy performance, and then next 2 weeks got it together okay, but haven't ran the ball that well. Against Arkansas, the running game was good enough. LJ Martin broke off like a 40-yard plus touchdown run that kind of helped those stats, but I think Kansas's numbers aren't telling the whole story. And if you watch Kansas, their defense isn't as good as the numbers show. That's not saying they're bad. They're improved from last year, and that was kind of the concern for Kansas going into this year. They weren't concerned about the offense, kind of like BYU fans weren't concerned about the offense. It was the defensive side of the ball, and Kansas has proved to be a little bit better. And there's actually an interesting matchup on this side of the ball. There's the two brothers, the Lassiter brothers, are
Yeah.
facing each other, and Darius going against his brother, wide receiver versus cornerback. So that'll be interesting to watch. But I think this is kind of a 50-50. I'm going to give BYU the edge because I think they kind of showed late in that Arkansas game that they could run it, and I think they're going to continue that. And I think LJ Martin's going to do well enough. I don't know if it's going to be a 150 yards plus for the rush game, but I think it's going to be good enough against
Yeah,
Kansas.
something interesting is his over under, at least on Prize Picks, is at 74. And I think how I'm seeing it, and he's at 0.5 for rushing touchdowns. I see him getting a rushing touchdown, and oh, I it's going to be right around that 74.
Yeah,
I think that's the odds makers putting it right on the head, like they normally do. I would steer maybe a little bit towards that under. Something similar to Arkansas. He has kind of some explosive plays, but for the most part, we're going to have to rely on Slovis in just a
yeah.
slugfest against Daniels, and hoping that someone makes a mistake and your team pulls it out is how I see this game.
Yeah, and I think Slovis has been good enough to rely on. I think Arkansas, going into that, I wasn't surprised. I mean, we knew it wasn't necessarily going to be the game where they got the run game going against Arkansas, and they didn't. I mean, they ran it well enough, but I think Slovis was able to carry him, and I think he's good enough as long as the running game can get some yards and kind of show some signs of life. He's good enough to carry the rest. So now on the other side, Kansas's offense versus BYU's defense. Who do you give the edge here in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm going with BYU's defense, at least from what I've seen. Now, Kansas has a really good running back, so that'll be interesting. Where BYU is only allowing, what is it, 108 defensive rush yards. So coming up strong on the run game defense. Now
Mm-hmm.
they've got that very talented. Is it Beals his name, or
Yeah,
Neal?
Neil. Yeah,
Neal. I thought Beal, not Bradley Beal, Neal, right?
Devin
We're
Neal. Yep.
talking football, Devin Neal, right? Very talented this year. They've got the two dynamic running. You got Daniels that can run it and then hand the ball off to Neal and have him run it,
Yep.
right? But I feel that the defense is going to show up again. We're going to see them closing those gaps on the run games. As for the air, BYU looking at there's 197 that they're allowing through the air. I had said 232 is the average for all of college football. I'd love to see them try to contain them. We've seen some signs from the defense for BYU that I don't think we're going to be giving up a ton of big plays with the passing, right? KJ Jefferson could have made a lot more big plays, but I think the defense limited a lot of those. And especially with our positive turnover margin, right, of the 2 per game, let's keep that going. We've seen some big interceptions when they've mattered. One thing I'd like to highlight with BYU's defense is, and I know it's only been 3 games, but their red zone only allowing teams 60% of the time to score. And that's because there's a small sample size, right? But on the flip side, Kansas is allowed 100%. Teams are in the red zone, they score. We've seen BYU come up with some turnovers in the red zone, not
Yeah.
refusing to quit, right? And that's what you ask for. that your team refuses to quit, even when the team is knocking on the door of scoring. And I think this BYU defense has that. So I give the edge to BYU's defense that they're going to come into play. Like you said, Thule, Bywater, sorry, I'm blanking on his name, open field tackle. Uh, oh, Eddie Heckard. I
Heckard, yeah.
can't believe I blanked on that because that was one of the biggest games I
Yeah.
felt in the Arkansas game was the guy's trying to juke him and Heckard just is locked on and
Closed
gets
in,
him,
yeah.
right? So I give the edge to BYU in this one. I see just so much effort from the defense right now, just the desire to get it done and put it back into the offensive hands. I put the edge on BYU for this one.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you're saying, but I have actually the edge for Kansas's offense here. Their passing offense has been really good with Daniels in there, um, and I see Kansas getting open guys over the top on those safeties. I think we have at least one walk on that's going to be starting as safety this week, maybe two, and I see guys getting open now. BYU's defense, so what it's going to come down to is how well they stop the run. Giving up some passing plays won't be the end of the world, but if they're doing both, that's going to be an issue. I give the edge to Kansas offense. They're just a little bit more proven. They did it last year, returning a lot of the same guys. BYU's defense, they've just had 3 games with Jay Hill. I think they're great. I think Jay Hill's a great coach. I think, Bywater, Thule, Heckard, Batty's playing really well. He's getting pressure. He's getting sacks. But I do just give the edge to Kansas just because of Jalen Daniels. He's the kind of the X factor for them. If BYU can somehow get him rattled, then that edge it flips quick. So getting into the prophecies, I don't have 3, but I do have 1 for each team. What's your prophecy? How does Kansas? How do they win this game? How do they beat BYU and get the home win?
I think I like I said before, it's playing that frustrating football that I hate to watch. Big throws over the middle, followed by a big quarterback run. If we see Daniels run more than one into the end zone, right? I don't even know what he's done this season
Yeah,
with
he didn't
running, but
against Nevada.
I
Didn't do
have a
much,
feeling
but
like if this game goes in Kansas's favor, it's going to be Daniels just like you said, in the Nevada game, he didn't rush as much. I think in this BYU game, they're going to need him to rush a little more. And Kansas wins this game if Daniels just decides, I'm taking this into my hands. I'm running. I'm throwing darts across the middle. We're exposing this BYU defense. We're scoring touchdowns. You know, like you throw at us what you want on your offense, but I know we're throwing this at you. That's how I see it. Just a big offensive game. Kansas, if they throw up a big offensive game, I see them. That's my prediction with Kansas. How they win, big offensive game. Everything just falls in place. It's one of those games where it's kind of a landslide, and they you wonder why you ever believed. So
yeah, my key for our Kansas to win is running the ball well, and Daniels has a lot to do with that, but also Devin Neal, Hinshaw Jr., their other guy that they kind of throw in there, get some more carries. I think if they can run the ball and kind of get what they want with BYU's defense, if they're getting 4 yards, 5 yards per rush, it's going to be tough for BYU to stay in this game because Kansas not only can they, I think they're going to throw the ball. I think inevitably Daniel's going to throw for 200, maybe 300 yards, but they're also running the ball well. That's going to be an issue for BYU, and I think there's just going to be too much there for BYU to be able to stop them, and I think Kansas wins that way. On the other hand, how does BYU win this game? Well, it's going to have a lot to do with 2 things. One, containing Jalen Daniels, like we were talking about. That's going to be the key, I think, on the defensive side of the ball is how do you keep Daniels? How do you keep him, throwing shorter passes, and then not escaping the pocket and running for 10, 15-yard chunks. That's the key on the defensive side of the ball. On the other side, it's going to be LJ Martin. Can he be good enough? Can he get over line of what you said, 74 yards? Can he rush for 80, 90 yards? If so, BYU, I think, wins this game. What's your key for BYU to win? If you're Sataki coaching them up, what's your philosophy going into this week?
Yeah, I think it's getting the offense going with the run game. Got to see Martin, and I think he has that. He's got that ability, right? He's a freshman, and he's already won the starting position that was already there were two other guys in front of him, right? We weren't even supposed to he was supposed to be getting some reps later on in games, and he
Yeah,
comes out and he takes it over. He takes over the starting position, just trying to will himself in there, right? And so in this game, if he can break past that 74 that he's projected at, right around there, we're going to see something. But I believe we got to see a step up with the receivers, creating separation, getting
yeah,
open, and we've got to protect Slovis because he's going to find his time to shine if he can drop straight back in that pocket and just deliver his passes. We've seen too many passes rolling to the right, rolling to the left, which is not what we want to see from him. We want to see him in that pocket, drop back, and deliver some darts. I think how BYU wins this game is all offensive. I'm not even going to say say the defense needs to step up. I see them stepping up in this game, so I have to see the offense. It can't be stagnant. They've got to be a step up from what they were at Arkansas because Kansas is going to come to score points, right? They're not going to be making some of those penalties that we saw Arkansas making. If they play a clean game against us, it's going to have to be a shootout for BYU to win because I think the defense will show up. BYU's offense will have to score. So
yeah. No, when I say LJ Martin too, what I should be saying is the offensive line. I think has a lot to do with this. Have you seen the weather for Saturday? Have you heard anything about
they had
that? Do you think
talked
that
about
plays an effect?
possible rain. Better not be a lightning delay, although I can't
So here's
jinx them.
what.
Um, there are so many good games happening during this BYU game. I will be watching BYU. I will not change the channel when BYU is playing. But what if there was a lightning delay and I got to tune in to watch some of Colorado's game, right?
Yeah.
Which is the same
No.
time.
Yeah.
Like I said, I will never share the TV time when the Cougars are on. That's a commandment from the
See,
Lord that you don't share
that's why you get.
the TV
I
time.
got this. This is an iPad. I got like two or three going at once. So
I think
BYU on the big screen,
I gotta call you out.
Colorado, Oregon
I
right
gotta
here.
call you out to repentance, Brandon. Choose ye this day whom ye will serve. Right? Choose the Cougars. Undivided attention, locked in. But if we get a
Coach Prime.
lightning delay, let's
Coach
turn on
Prime.
some other games, right?
Coach Prime. No, he's good TV. But yeah. So yeah, it looks like we have partly cloudy in the morning, followed by scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon. This game's at 3:30. That's afternoon, or sorry, 2:30 Kansas time. 10 to 20 mile an hour winds. Um, just kind of scattered thunderstorms throughout the day. I don't know if there'll be lightning delays. It could just be raining and a little bit windy, but that just is kind of why I say the ground game has to be going for
Did you
BYU.
say 10 to 20 mile per hour
Yeah.
winds? There's a betting trend I've never followed, but it's the under in windy games. It's almost like a guarantee, is what people say. You go for the under because it does play a big factor. So I think it's anytime it's over 10 is what they say is kind of the threshold. And then you
Yeah.
say the under's a good look.
That leads us into our picks. Did you have a graphic you were going to show at some
Yes,
point?
I did. So it goes along first with the spread. So I'll pull that one up.
Okay, we can do
So
that first if you want.
looking at this, we've got, oh, this is the money line. Sorry. Let me pull up the spread. Here is the spread. Let me hide that one. Or that's the same one. Well, which
That's the
one am
same
I
one.
looking for? What the? I've got the same graphic up twice. Anyways, looking at we'll talk about the money line, right? So the best one, plus 300 for the Cougars. There is you've got 57% of the bets coming in on Kansas money line, but 97% of the money on BYU money line. Okay. So there is big time money coming in on the Cougars on the money line. Now, I wish I had the spread one to show, That one had, um, I'd have to pull it up. Anyways, what I wanted to show is that although, you know, there's more people saying Kansas will win placing bets, there's big time money coming in on the Cougars to win outright. And I'm with them because I there's a model I like to look at, and it had it as BYU a 2 point favorite. Now, that is lost when you give 2 points to the home team, which varies per team. That's just a bare bones. Give them two, so that puts it at zero. A coin flip. Who wins this game? Bing, catch it. So when I see the 9.5 on the spread, I'm going BYU to cover that. In fact, I'm going BYU money line to win. Hearing about the wind, I'm looking to the under. I think it's at that 55 because Kansas is going to score. We pulled up their numbers of what they've scored on some other teams. They're going to want to score, but with that wind, the weather, I'm going under. I'm going under on this one. So under that 55.
Yeah, I'm going under as well, and I also have BYU covering, and I also have them winning. So, I mean, we're not far off on here. I kind of have a score that's close to that line, that over under line. I have a well, I'm thinking like 30-24, BYU. So a 6 point win for BYU, 54 total points, and BYU goes into Lawrence, upsets them. Defense makes some key plays, maybe gives up a little bit, but as we've seen, even when they're giving up yards, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to give up points. And especially with the weather, maybe a little windy, maybe like I was saying before, if he can get over the top, but maybe the wind has a little bit of effect on that, and they can't throw the ball as well. And BYU's run defense, they've been good so far. So if they just continue that, then BYU has a good chance of winning this one in Kansas. And yeah, any like score prediction? I know you're not good at those, but
No, I'm
how
not a
many
score predict.
points? Like how many points do you think BYU can put up? And maybe just start with that.
I'd love to see BYU hold them to only like 24, right? And then put
That's what I had. Yeah.
BYU getting the offense going. But let's not give them too much credit. Why not somewhere in the 20s that still beats
Yeah.
them, but under the 55? That's what I see. I
So we're
found the
in the same
graphic.
range.
Yeah, I think we're in the
Okay,
same. I
let's see it.
found the real graphic of, so this actually has for the spread, which is crazy that it's gone up to that 9.5, right? We've seen it only go up when there's 67% of bets coming in to cover the spread and 61% of the money. So there's more bets coming in. BYU covers that spread, and then couple that with what I showed of the just the crazy amount of money coming in on the Cougars. There's some people that are seeing something that they like from BYU, myself included, in this one.
Hmm.
I think there's just, in closing, I just think I see stuff from this BYU team of just the right type of attitude and the defense, and you've got the fans that'll show up in Kansas. I think they just want it. They understand that this is their first Big 12 game. It's history making, right? It's the one you want to hang up in Lavelle Edwards Stadium. You know how they have those famous games where it's
Yeah.
like, we beat Texas this year, we beat Penn State when they came, Miami. This is going to be one where let's win it. Let's win it in an amazing fashion, and let's hang it in a couple years in Lavelle Edwards Stadium so that every time Kansas fans come, they can look up and say, "Ah, dang, yeah, BYU beat us at home in their first
Yep.
Big 12 game and showed everyone BYU came to play in the Big 12 conference." So,
Yeah, I agree. Let's make it historic. Just closing. Let's go Cougars. There should be a lot of BYU fans there in Lawrence, Kansas, staying in Kansas City and just like 45 minutes from there. So yeah, I hope to see a lot of Cougar blue, even though looking at the logos, they're pretty close.
yeah, you
But
could turn on the game and it's a sea of blue, right?
yeah,
So, I don't know if they change. I'll have to look. Do they ever wear
they might
like
wear
more
red. Yeah,
red?
they wear red
Okay.
sometimes.
Okay, so
So maybe they'll
that
do
would be
that for this
that
game.
would be the way to keep, or no,
Yeah.
make it look better on TV. Say we're making this a blue game so that no one can really tell they're BYU fans unless you zoom
Yeah.
in, right? You hate to
Yep.
see it when it's BYU playing Utah and you've got the red corner, and it's like,
Yeah.
they showed
There's
up,
always
but
the corner of the away fans.
but this one will be good. This one will be really good, Brandon.
No, I'm excited, and yeah, 1:30 kickoff. That's kind of like prime time for college football, and like you said, a lot of good games going on. But of course, we'll both be watching this one, and
Yes, I will be
we'll
tuned
do
in
a
on
post
this one.
game, and we'll see if we were right. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, comment, tell us your prediction, and subscribe. Any other things, Tanner?
No, thank you so much, everyone. We enjoyed doing this, and go Cougars.
Go Cougs.